Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Book Talk. This time, I am excited to bring you my friend, Lisa Phillips, who is an expat from Britain who writes amazing suspense. I inhaled this one in flats. But we have so much to talk about because we're going to be collaborating. You're graciously allowing me to be part of one of your indie collections that's coming out in summer of 2023. You write all kinds of books. You're a mentor for Sunrise, and you write Love Inspired Suspense. So why don't you start by telling people a little bit about how you got into writing?
Yeah. I was at my Bible college graduation, and I graduated from an extension campus in Germany, and I got up on the stage, and there was like maybe eight people graduating, and the dean said, "This is Lisa, she's a writer." And I just looked at him like, "What?" And I had no idea. And God just was like, "Okay, now, like, maybe we can do this and you won't screw it up," because I probably would have before then. And so from then, it was kind of on my radar. And so when I got married at the end of summer that same year, and then got into the Christian Writers Guild and did a lot of their courses and conferences. My son, I took him to a conference at the Christian Writers Guild with my mom because he was 3 weeks old.
Okay, I've taken two children to ACFW and a Calibris retreat, but they were like 2 months or 4 months old.
My mom was there.
That's impressive. That's amazing.
I was like, well, I already got it scheduled. And then now he's just turned 12. So it's been a while. And then this past year was my first ACFW, so that was a lot of fun. So from there it was kind of on my radar, but I just really wanted to learn how to do it. And then fast forward, my first contract was 2012. So 7 years later.
Yeah. That's amazing. And how many books have you put out in the 10 years since then? Because you're pretty prolific.
I think it's something like 63 or 64 in the low 60s.
That's, people are like, I think I'm writing book 40 right now. It's this one, or the one I'm doing with you will be 40 or 41. Yeah. And people are like, oh, I don't know how you do it. And then there are authors like you, and I'm like, I don't know how you do it.
And then there's like the Susan May Warrens and the Robin Lee Hatchers, and we're all like, trying to catch up.
Exactly. That's amazing because you're writing suspense, and suspense is, like, when I'm writing a cozy mystery or I'm writing World War II, there's always new ideas, and cozy mysteries are low stakes. World War II, there's so many stories that haven't been told. But then when I'm writing the romantic suspense, there's so many different things that have to be happening. And, you have to have these plots and these red herrings, and the stakes have to keep going up. And you have to have the romance and all those things. How do you keep coming up with ideas?
I think once in a while I'm like, why does it feel like I've done this before? Or I'm like in the mood to like I really need to bury somebody alive, and I haven't done that yet. And so you kind of just have to keep coming up with new stuff. And sometimes it gets a little like, okay, that was a little, I was pushing it a little bit of believability, but I needed something that was like new and like, or something, but it was like a little spin on it. So you just have to keep, you have to get a lot of input to have creative ideas. But it's keeping it fresh. So
I don't know about you, but I'm always scanning like articles and headlines and trying to find that little spark of a what if, and how can we twist it up? And now people keep turning me on to podcasts. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to find time to listen to all these, because I'm always listening to audiobooks. It helps my Goodreads, number go up, whereas podcasts don't count anywhere. We need a Goodreads for podcasts. So I can feel like I'm, making progress toward a goal or whatever. But you're writing for Love Inspired Suspense, and then you write for yourself independently, which is, and you do it right. When you talk about you studied, you wanted to make sure you learned how to do it well. You definitely have, because this book was phenomenal. And I know it's just,
I love
one
of my favorites. Yeah. For sure.
I was teaching I was a guest speaker at a class at Purdue last week for writers, and they're like, what's your favorite book? And I'm like, that's like asking who's my favorite kid.
Yeah. Yep.
So how do you come up with the plots? And why do you do both Love Inspired and your
Mm.
independent books?
Initially, Love Inspired Suspense was definitely a goal in the beginning because you don't need an agent and because you get to be on the shelf with all these other amazing authors. And I feel like there's so many established authors that still write for Love Inspired Suspense, and then they're alongside these new unknown authors. So it's just always been something I appreciated about them and how they do it. And it's almost like a challenge writing a good Love Inspired Suspense because you have this set format that they want, and then you have to figure out how to make that fresh. So every time you have to come up with some kind of little new spin on it to make it different, to make it slightly new, or do something in a different way but still keep to the formula. So it was always like a little challenge.
Yeah.
And then for years I did 2, sometimes 3 a year alongside indie publishing, and I feel like it gave me a lot of visibility on Amazon. A lot of indie authors talk about like Amazon visibility rankings, things like that, and I really think it helped me get a lot of traction as an indie author versus coming into it just me, nobody knows who I am.
Yeah.
So I think it really benefited my career to be a Love Inspired Suspense author. But then I also knew that I wanted to write books where I could do whatever I wanted and break all the rules. And so where
Absolutely.
I'm the boss and nobody can tell me what to do. And so that's been a lot of fun, and then that enabled me to figure out really who I am as an author and the kind of books that I want to write. And it took a couple series for me to really nail that down. I think like the 5th series that I wrote was Last Chance County, and that's really I
Okay.
think where I hit my stride on, okay, this is the kind of book I want to write, this is who I am as an author. And
Yeah.
just though you get emails from readers, and I got one once and she said, I've read everything, every book that you've ever written, and watching you grow has been awesome. And I was like, oh wow, like
Yeah.
readers are seeing me grow. And Cold Dead Night, the reason why I love that one so much is because it was actually, I wrote it a couple years ago. A lot of books I'll write and then they'll come out a month or two, sometimes 3 months
Mhm.
later. But Cold Dead Night I wrote a couple of years ago, and it went through so many rounds of revisions, and it went through a Donald Moss in whole intensive class, and so I just poured so much effort into that one and so much heart into making it
Yeah.
what it is that I feel like it really paid off. And now I get to
Yes.
continue the series. So
And it
yeah.
did pay off because you
Yeah.
created a fan. You created a fan with
Yeah.
me. So,
Hmm.
and that's one of the things that I love about writing is you can
Mm.
always push yourself and you can always grow
Yeah.
versus just kind of dialing it in. So talking to writers who are doing that, and then when your readers can tell you, oh, I see that progression and I see how you've
Mm.
grown. That's so
Yeah.
exciting that they can tell you're not just dialing it in, but that you're really working hard to give them great
Yeah.
stories.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you've got all of these series, and yet they create a world. How
Hmm.
did you come up with that? Because that's a level of complexity I have not achieved.
So back when I wrote the Sanctuary Witsec Town series, I learned some very hard ways that you need a series Bible. So I had a
Yes.
character who had one name in book 1, and then book 3 he was somebody else, and then in book 5 he well, they were all in witness protection, so he was like, no, I went back to my other name. And so I kind
Oh,
of had
that's
to like
hilarious.
figure out a loophole for him changing
Yeah.
his name back to the correct name that I forgot about. And so now I have a fantastic editor who helps me out with that and literally remembers everything, and it just baffles me. I'm like, wait, she had a sister? And so a
I
lot
wrote
like
that. Yeah.
series Bibles for I started making them in Last Chance County. And then there's a series before that, Northwest Counterterrorism, and there's some characters who kind of like on the periphery in there, and they actually are the guys in Chevalier back when they're in the military. And
Oh, yeah.
so and now when I write, so I was writing Cold Dead Night, and she's injured at the end of that book, And I was like, oh well, I know somewhere that's like a physical therapy, like PTSD center that she go. And then I was like, no, 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 like I want to keep it in a separate world,
Oh, that's
those
funny.
thrillers, and not to actually intertwine every single thing I've ever written. However, just doing Last Chance County and making that world, I really feel like, so one of my core values is like a small group of really close knit relationships. And I
Mhm.
think that plays out in my books to where, they are about a group of people who have really close relationships. And so, when I get to know, I know exactly who they are. And
Yeah.
there's a character in Last Chance County who's in every book, and it's his story is number 8. And so, just seeing that progression of getting to know him through 7 books and then finally getting his story, I think is satisfying for me as an author, and then it's satisfying for readers as well. And then
Absolutely.
always, yeah, like always looking for ways to tie things together. And Susan May Warren does this a lot as well. And I love
Mhm.
it. Like, somebody's nephew or cousin. I have, so my original Last Chance County, there's a guy who was a police officer. They were in the basement trying to rescue somebody, and the building exploded above them, and he got paralyzed. And so he's my character in my Sunrise Publishing novel for next year. And so, being able to take him from that series and, go back and give him a story. Now, 18 months later, where's he at? And then the
Yeah.
girl, a side character from book 10, and she's the girl, and they had this history that we didn't know about. And so just seeing it all tied together, I just think it's cool. Like, somebody's half brother or their cousin or their, it just makes a difference that they relate to each other and they don't feel so isolated between books.
And I think that readers love that. I call it the
Mm.
Easter egg, where you're doing that and weaving them together. And I literally was just had the aha last night on how to tie a novella set in World War II to
Mm.
the first book that's coming in my next series. And I was
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, and I can do
Mhm.
this in the novella, and edits
Mhm.
to so that then people who read both will be like, oh, so
Mm.
this is why that was
Yep.
happening.
Little
And
hint. Yep.
yeah, and I think it's just so rewarding as a reader when you get to
Mhm.
experience that. But it takes a lot of
Yeah.
work on the author side to pull it all
Yeah.
together.
Remember.
And
Yes.
so,
Yep.
and you're doing a series with Sunrise where
Mhm.
you're the mentor for new
Mhm.
authors. So why did you decide that that was something you want to do? Because I recently joined a Discord that you're part of, and you're constantly
Mhm.
mentoring people on that, answering
Mhm.
questions, being really generous with your experience and time.
Mhm.
So why were you like, okay, I really want to do this? I want to be the mentor for a new series through Sunrise.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so much of being an author feels very much like you're on your own trying to figure out how to do this. And there's a lot of resources. There's probably more resources now
Mhm.
than there were 10 years ago. But
Yeah.
even especially for indie authors, I feel like somebody who's been in this, I thought I was late to the party in 2014, and now I feel like I've been here forever. And then there's so many awesome new authors, and you just feel like kind of alone and trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
Or you sometimes, when I read my own book, I think it's terrible. Every book I
Yeah.
wrote, I thought it was terrible. And then I have to send it to somebody else, and she's like, no, this is the best thing you've ever written. And I'm like, okay, if you
Yeah.
say so. Because I can't tell with my own stuff.
Mhm.
And I can go back and do edits, but sometimes it's like, well, this feels a bit off, but I don't really know how to fix it. And you just end
Yeah.
up kind of chewing over things. And sometimes you fix it and you're like, well, I don't know if that's better than what it was. And just so, just Susan May Warren's heart through
Mhm.
Novel Academy and My Book Therapy, and just what they have done, taking authors in and mentoring them for years, and then just to
Mhm.
put that into a publishing company and create this family atmosphere of we're all helping each other, just was something that really appealed to me, in that, like I said, like small group of close-knit relationships is really
Yeah.
important to me. And so you get to feel not quite so alone, and to be able to go, what I know, and then help somebody like I can see your problem, but I can't see my problem. So let's see each other's problems and then we'll both be better. So yeah, and
Yeah, I love that.
it's been amazing. I mean, every single one of the submissions that I got, they were just fantastic. And the final 10, I honestly could have taken any or all of them, and I wanted more than they let me have. And so, but it just really was just a God thing of the ladies that I got that are my authors that I'm mentoring, and they're just professional, and they're so much better at social media than I am. I'm kind of excited because I could definitely have something to learn about Instagram and Facebook. And so, yeah, so it really is like a give and take of, yes, I'm here to mentor you, but I also have so much that I can learn. So it's just a great atmosphere. I really enjoy it.
That's awesome. And I think that's one of the things that's really special about, in
Mhm.
particular, like the Christian fiction space, is there's a
Mhm.
lot of, I
Yeah.
was helped by Colleen and Rachel and people like that. And then
Mhm.
I turn around and help other people. And then you have
Yeah.
kind of those lateral relationships as well,
Mhm.
where you're helping each other and, just kind of collaborating, like the collection we're going to do together in the summer.
Mhm. Yeah.
To me, I love doing those because it's lending
Mhm.
my strength to other authors, but
Mhm.
then I may find some new readers myself, but it's all
Yeah.
about how can I help my friends
Yeah.
find new readers for them. And
Yeah.
it's kind of what I do book talk
Mhm.
too. It's kind
Yeah.
of fun how it all comes together. Um,
Mhm.
so as we kind of come to the last few minutes, and we've talked about a lot of your books, which ones are coming out in this month, January 2023? Because you've got
Woohoo.
so much going on, but which are the ones that
You
readers should really
know.
be looking for?
Okay, so out of Last Chance County, I have to try and make the story not super long. Out of Last Chance County, we had Chevalier, which was the private security company that lived in town. And then that spawned Last Chance Downrange, which is set in Benson, Washington. And this is Benson First Responders. So this book came out in October, and it was book 1. And then book 2 came out right at the beginning of January. So this is my newest one, and he's an EMT, so they're all first responders. And this is just, every book is kind of surprising about how it turns out, and this one just turned out like it was emotional for me, which
Yeah.
was kind of interesting because it's not, there's some things I've been working on, working with other authors. I've been figuring out how, okay, let's make the romance stronger, let's make the emotion stronger. And so this one came out in the beginning of January, and this one is the first book in the Sunrise series, and these guys are stepbrothers, but they're not
Ooh.
they're not like half biologically related. They're his dad and his mom got married. And so um just exploring like that relationship too. And so I tied that in to make, Blackout's kind of a prequel to the Sunrise season of like getting people to go, oh yeah, Last Chance County, like what is going on over there? And so just seeing, where they are now, and so catching up. So those were my beginning and end of January releases.
And that just sounds perfect. What a crazy month. Lots of books
Mhm.
coming out.
Yep.
So when you're writing, because you're prolific, I mean, that's an example of
Mhm.
it. You've got 2 books
Right.
coming out in the same month. What
Yeah.
do your days look like? How do you actually get your word count in?
Mhm. And I pretty much do this full time now at this point. And actually, my husband retired from his job August 2021. And so he's been working with me in the publishing company since then. And so that took a lot off my plate in terms of admin and ads and
Yeah. Oh,
all
that's
those
great.
author things we hate to do and we want somebody else to do.
Yes.
So he's fantastic at doing all those things I don't want to do. And then he also works for our church at the same time. So he kind of does 2 part-time jobs. And so he took a lot off my plate, which enabled me to spend most of my day making notes and sprinting, and getting my word count in so that I can produce,
Yes.
easily, 20,000 words in a week. If I have to do more, I can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of full time now. And when I'm in a first draft, I really don't do much else. And then I try to do ministry like between, and put it around what I'm doing with a new book. And then I've got my editing down to, as I hate editing. I really hate editing. So I basically design my entire system around the fact that I don't want to revise anything and I really don't like editing. So you have to do all the prep work so that you avoid these problems. So in
Yes.
my just going through, like, coming under Susan May Warren and go, the story equation,
Mhm.
and then Story Genius, the book by Lisa Cron, those two
Oh my
go
gosh,
hand
it's
in hand.
brilliant.
Yes.
My
And it's
copy's
like,
like right here somewhere.
yes, it's like how to take the story equation and how to put it in the book. And I was just
Yeah.
like, whoa, these go together. So if you do all that work up front and figure out who these people are and what they believe about themselves, what they believe about the world, and how like the way they're going to make decisions, and then
Yeah.
that informs what they do. And then I've always been an outliner. Sometimes I don't do myself a favor and my outline's kind of thin and I run into issues and I'm banging my head on the table. But generally, if I can have a solid idea of, at least the next quarter of the book ahead of, then it
Mhm.
takes away some of the frustration, and then I can get the words down, and then, smooths out my process, and I'm happier, which means everybody else is happier because mom's happy.
Yeah.
And so yes. So yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and I think, there's always a big debate, pants or platter, pants or platter. It's
Mhm.
really just a function of when are you going to do the hard work? Are you
Yeah.
doing it on the front end
Mhm.
or are you doing it on the back end? And,
Mhm.
I've got friends who are like
Yeah.
adamant, if I knew it was going to happen, I wouldn't be able to write it and it just wouldn't be fun.
Mm.
And it depends on the book,
Mhm.
but life is so busy that I'm like, the more I've really realized, the more of that work I can do up front.
Yeah.
And it feels like I'm not working because I'm not
Mhm.
producing words. But I'm like, man, it
Mhm.
makes such a difference on the back end of,
Yeah.
being able to go, oh, okay, so this is why, and this is the discovery. And I'm just trying to do it more and more on the front end, on the
Mhm.
character side.
Yeah.
Because the plot part is relatively easy, but
Mhm.
getting that character depth is where I have to really push myself.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And I had to figure out where's my pain points in my process.
yeah,
My pain points are I don't know what's happening. My
yeah,
pain points are I can't get these words typed out because I don't know what's going on.
yeah,
And my pain points are this turned out terrible and I have to fix the whole thing. And so, to do the work to eliminate those pain points, it just,
yeah,
you have to know yourself and how you process things. And, doing all the work at the end sounds like the worst thing in the world to me.
yeah,
But some people really do. That's how they have to
yeah,
do it. So yeah, yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me. Oh, it was so fun. And of course, I lost my voice. There it is. All right. So